Graduation stole, is that supposed to be in with the cap and gown, or will seniors get that at a different time? I'm unsure when they get it, but I know that there's a whole box of stoles in the testing closet. I think we hand those out later. I'm just not totally sure when, and I'm very sorry about that. They'll get it at senior assembly. Awesome. Thanks, Ms. Miller. Should students arrive by 7:30 now instead of 7? Let me look. That's a good AP testing question. Morning exams would begin at 8. For example, students taking an AM session should arrive by 7:30. Yeah, so per the weekly message right now, and I copy and paste all this stuff. So per the weekly message, it says that they start at 8 and students should arrive by 7:30. So the technical answer to that question is yes. You should get there at 7:30. Okay, cool. Back to the Google form because it's still real long. We're going to find out about report cards. I know everybody loves watching the show to watch me stand here and text people. All right, there we go. Q3 report cards. We'll find that out in a minute. AP test question: will scores be available online, or do they get mailed by the school over the summer? I think it's neither. I really feel like we do get them, like teachers get them, but I also think like I think they're available online. I feel like back when I was in high school, they got mailed to your house. I have this recollection of my dad bringing my results to me at work, which was as a lifeguard at a pool, and I proceeded to accidentally drop it in the pool. So that was disappointing. Does IB have summer assignments? Yes, it does. Those will be communicated in the very near future. If you have any questions about that, again, go ahead and email Mr. Barron, lbarron@wcpss.net. I saw that the State Board of Education approved more funds for COVID summer programs. Will there be anything available for high school students in Wake County this summer? Yes and no. I don't have any details. I can make it a point to ask Mr. Ship about that. It's important to note, like, that takes several weeks, right? Like, so the state will approve it. The district won't hear for a few days how much, if any, they're going to get. And then it takes the district a good long while to be like, all right, how are we going to use this? How's it going to get dispersed and stuff like that? So we haven't heard any details here, to the best of my knowledge. If our student has EOC testing, Math 3 and English 2, then they do not need to be at school for those. Then they do not need to be at school for those periods, test times, the first week of exams. Actually, those periods, test times. Yes, that is correct. Miss Bartholomew, if you want to, I would email your counselor and ask them for some clarification. Although I will say the counselors are in high demand right now because they are giving a lot of these AP tests. You could also email your administrator, and they can work on tracking that down. I will talk to Miss Sanchez, and either I'll bring a bunch of better information, or I'll see if she wants to be a special guest next week, as we get a lot closer to those exams for sure. Is the required AP meeting night for parents and students at school or online? I believe it was going to be online. I'm not sure what it is right now. Let's see if we can find out. Although I have this crazy feeling that AP testing. All right, we will ask about that in a little bit. But just for the other question about your student being marked absent during an AP exam, Ms. Harris just sent out an email to all staff, reminder that students taking AP exam should not be marked present, and has shared the roster of that with everybody. So, anyway, there's that. If that does happen, email your counselor. We can get that knocked out pretty quickly. During exams, May 27th and later, will students be allowed to leave after a morning exam with no afternoon exam? Yes, they are allowed to leave. That I can definitely answer. But they cannot leave when they're done, right? So what'll happen is you have your student in a room with other students, and then we have 20 rooms of students taking exams. When your student is done, they're in a room. Eventually, that room will be done. We cannot release students until all of the rooms are done because of test security stuff. So students are allowed to leave. They are allowed to check in late if they only have an afternoon exam. That is not a problem at all. They would need transportation for that. You know, like they can ride the bus to school if they have a morning exam, and then they can get picked up, or they can get dropped off and then take the bus home. But they would need transportation midday. And is there a form? I have this pulled up.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do, but there's some gaps for sure.
Okay. But it kind of explains the whole third block versus second.
Oh, at the bottom?
Well, having them in.
Hey, everybody, Kim Miller. Saving the day as usual. You want to come say hi? She's here.
Hello.
She keeps me straight all the time. And she's in here now because I think she has some better answers.
Well, it just tells you that if you've got the class on 2A or 2B when you take it. So if you've got, in the example that someone posted in the chat.
About their EOC?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like, okay, so let's go back and was that Miss Bartholomew? Okay, some EOC teachers do review during their exam blocks. Yes, absolutely. The AP meeting is not required. So let's see, Math 3 and English 2 in the same block. Okay, so second block, if you look at, oh, I see what's happening because the EOCs only have the one block. So Ms. Bartholomew, let me make sure I'm understanding the question right. I think I get it now. Your son has potentially 2A Math 3 and 2B English 2, and then on the exam, there's only second block EOCs. That's not an issue for just your son. That's a whole thing. And I believe Ms. Sanchez is working with those teachers to communicate when that's going to happen, because obviously they're going to have to get bumped to a different day to accommodate for that test. But yes, that is super confusing, and there are more details to come on that. Yes. Okay, so we had this question a while ago. Were Q3 report cards get printed? Yes, they were. And they went home just before spring break. So if you didn't get it, feel free to email your counselor or administrator, and we can try and get you a copy. Okay, that was a really good question about can they leave. I think my email address has been dropped from the MHS master list. I get texts, but no emails. I heard this happens to a few. Who to contact? Go ahead and email both me, cpatton2, where's my mug? cpatton2 at wcpss.net. And put me and Coach Bunting, C. Bunting, in that email. Email both of us, and we can get that straightened out for you. What activity is happening at school this morning, Wednesday, April 27th? Oh, that was the beginning of the academic honors celebrations hosted by PTSA. Let me go back and check the chat because we got a big question coming up. Okay, cool. I'm glad that straightened that out. And yes, thank you, Miss Miller. She's all the time texting me because I've messed something up. So most of the time we get something right, it's actually because Miss Miller saved the day. Okay, so here's the question. Will civics still be required for freshmen since EPF is going to be phased in? In other words, will EPF replace civics, or will they both be required? Thank you. My understanding right now regarding EPF is that, okay, so it goes like this. For students graduating this year, they had to have 4 history credits to graduate. They had to have World, they had to have Civics, they had to have American History 1 and American History 2. In some cases, IB students have classes that sub out. AP histories can sub out. Like AP US obviously meets the US history one of the U.S. histories. There's a new course coming in, required for graduation for this year's 10th graders. We call it EPF. Oh, yeah, good question in the chat. It stands for Economics and Personal Finance, I think. It's centered on the idea of personal finance, and I believe the narrative story is that the legislature said, oh, kids need to know more about personal finance, so we need to make sure that kids have that class. Mind you, civics right now is civics and economics, and there's a big personal finance chunk in there. And CTE used to offer a personal finance course already. But the state legislated that that DPI has to provide a personal finance course for high schoolers. So what they have done is they said, okay, we still have to have 4 credits to graduate. You have to have a world, a civics, an American, and EPF. So my understanding, the short answer to this question is no, EPF does not replace civics. They're both required, and they are required starting with this year's 10th graders, who will end up having to take it their senior year. That's just how it's going to be for them. Are students excused from the entire day of classes for AP testing if they are only testing in one session? Hold on, I have an email about that. I know everybody's super excited to watch me stand here and okay. Okay, so the attendance policy has not changed. If a student has a morning exam, they report directly to that exam. If a student has an afternoon exam, they should report to first and second block, but then are excused from third or fourth because they're in the exam. I'd have to find the full wording of that, but I think there is some expectation of being in class. Yeah, so if you take a morning exam, you're excused from the afternoon classes, but not vice versa. Man, Ms. Petzold, thanks. That's by far the clearest way to say it. I was about to trip all over that. Can you please explain the exam schedule? Can we pick up or drop off our students if they do not have an exam during one part of the day? Okay, so let's recap the schedule. This is a good question. So the first week, we have the first week. There's like Monday the 27th is 1A and 1B exams. If your student has a 1A exam but not a 1B, you're welcome to pick them up. If your student has a 1B and not a 1A, you're welcome to drop them off. Same thing for 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B. Those are very long times to sit in a room. So we will be taking attendance. There are not that many consequences for attendance at this point in the year, so take that for what it's worth. If your student is not actively taking an exam, then you may certainly pick them up. Are they allowed to miss a day if they have no exams? Yes. I mean, we have to mark absences as excused or unexcused per the legislated definition of excused absences. And we will take attendance during exams. However, it's all really about what is the consequence of those absences. That's the only thing to really evaluate. The one thing I'll say there is if you participate in a sport and attendance is part of that eligibility for next year, it's going to be important to consider that. Talk to your coach. Talk to Coach East if you have any questions. But a good question. Will there be a Millbrook Ambassadors program next year? Yes, there will be. When do students apply? Very early in September or October. More information. We'll put it on the website. We'll talk more about that later for sure. My senior tells me that once AP exams are done this week, that they don't need to come to class, that they are basically done. What do they do in AP classes once exams are done? It depends on the teacher. I would recommend reaching out to your teachers to find out. But historically, lots of fun things. Like I know that there's some solar oven chocolate chip cookie making after exams and things like that. But that's really up to each teacher. So I would just check with them. If a child does not have an exam during the scheduled exam, okay, we're gonna. I think we've answered that question. I rarely do that, but I think we're gonna go on by that. If my child has no block exams that are scheduled for the week of June 3rd, are there regular classes that day? No, there are not classes scheduled on the day. So, like, looking at the exam schedule, for example, Friday, June 3rd is fourth block EOC exams. We will not have any other classes scheduled that day. That is a great way to ask that question where I can give you an answer that way. There are no other classes scheduled on that day. So Monday, June 6th is third block EOC exams. There are no other classes scheduled that day. Tuesday, June 7th, second block EOC exams. There are no other classes scheduled that day, if that makes sense. And then the last question is, if my senior doesn't have any exams, does she have to come to school at all during the exam days? So I think the best way to answer that is, like, the first week of exams, you'll see that only 2A and 2B exams are scheduled. There are no other classes scheduled that day other than 2A and 2B, or 3A and 3B. The second week, there are no classes scheduled other than fourth block exams. And we take attendance when classes are scheduled. So on Friday, June the 3rd, fourth block EOC exams happen. Those are the only courses scheduled that day. I think that's the best way to answer that. And that is everything from the Google form. So I'm going to close the Google form because that was an awful lot. And I want to make sure we get back to the chat. I don't think I missed anything, namely because you guys do a good job of answering all the questions for me. The Millbrook Ambassadors Program was the brainchild of Mr. Barron and Ms. Haddock. And because we're a magnet school, we do a ton of tours. We have people come all the time, check out the school, learn about it. And we noticed that we were answering the parent questions most of the time, and the kids were kind of like, yay, it's a school. I don't understand what I'm seeing, but it looks fun. So finally we were like, oh, it'd be good to have kids here. So we have an application process for students to become Millbrook ambassadors. They go on tours with us. They help share their experience with students and families. The ambassadors program is open to any student. You don't have to be in any particular program or classes or anything like that. Anybody can apply. We just find an incredible value in having students who can speak to their experience in a variety of settings, whether that's our IB Expo night here or Wildcat Open House on the 19th. We use these students to help share their experience with students and parents because that has proven to be what parents and students want. So that's a really great question, and I would encourage your student to apply if they love being a part of Millbrook and are happy to talk about it. That's an awesome question. Thank you. I'm going to do a last call for questions. It's 8:35. My muscles are cold from taking a week off. So right now I'm feeling pretty exhausted. Last scroll up through the chat. Again, shout out to Ms. Petzold for answering so many questions for me. Thanks to Ms. Miller for coming on down. Yeah, okay. Cool deal. I hope that all of you have a wonderful week. Tell your friends to join us. Again, as we get close to exams and graduation, we're going to have more questions. One of the things that we love about this is parents are really good at right, so we often end up with things that are in a gray area, and every now and then, like, those questions help us really peel those layers back and be able to clarify some of the things in those gray areas. It's incredibly valuable, so tell your friends. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys live next Wednesday. That's going to be the 11th. Oh, happy birthday, Dad, the 11th. Somebody remind me. Don't forget to call Dad for his birthday. But I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next time. Stay safe out there.